A very good evening to everyone and happy Holi. So, good evening, everyone. So, don't worry, we have yet not started anything. I just came early, so I just made a diagram. So, we have yet not started anything. I think we still have some 2 minutes left, 1 minute left, right? So, yeah. So, I am just waiting. We'll start. Good evening, everyone. Happy Holi, people. Happy Holi. So, I think we can start now, right? So, a very good evening to everyone and happy Holi to everyone out there. May this festival of colors brings a lot of happiness in your life. Okay? So, let's quickly start now. So, the last class which we were discussing about emotional intelligence. We will have a quick recap and then we'll proceed. Okay? Don't look at the screen right now. I know you must be busy making this diagram, but anyhow, let me just start first. So we have talked about what do you mean by emotions, right? We have also discussed what are different types of emotions. Okay? Primary, secondary, positive, negative. So we have talked about that, right? We have discussed that how there used to be a myth with respect to emotions, that while you are letting your emotions interfere in your decisions, then in that situation, the efficiency, effectiveness, that all gets crippled, right? You are not able to arrive at sound judgments, right? You would not be able to make rational decisions because your decisions would be governed by your emotions, right? So this was a myth which was existing at certain point of time. However, later it was realized through various researches and it was proved time and again that in fact emotions facilitate sound judgment instead of obstructing it. In fact, it is emotions which enables you to arrive at judgment which can result into efficiency and effectiveness. We have talked about it in, I think, yesterday's lecture, right? So this is what we have already discussed, that how every human being is capable of experiencing emotions, right? So basically, emotions are enabling you to make sound judgments instead of obstructing. In fact, showing your emotions is a sign of strength rather than weakness. It enables you to build trust. In fact, it ensures ethical values in your decisions, right? It enhances your reasoning. So we have discussed all of this, right? This is what we have already discussed. Take care. Then we talked about that with respect to emotions, you should know that in what capacity the emotions have to be used and how it has to be used. And for that, there is a concept known as emotional intelligence, right? Take care. Are you making this diagram? In case you are, तो it's okay. Otherwise, you can wait also. ठीक? अभी नहीं बनाना है, अभी रुक जाओ. So then we talked about what do you mean by emotional intelligence. So we took a definition which says a simple definition: ability to reason with emotions and to use emotions in the reasoning. That is the simple definition that we have understood. There is another definition of emotional intelligence which I have discussed with you, which says that emotional intelligence is the ability of an individual to identify, to understand, to use, to manage the emotions of oneself as well as others so as to have positive implications. For example, diffusing any kind of social conflict. For example, to ensure effective communication. For example, to relieve any kind of mental stress. So we have discussed this definition of emotional intelligence. The next topic that we are supposed to discuss is the building blocks of emotional intelligence, or to be very precise, the scholarly perspective. Now, this is one of the scholarly perspective as far as emotional intelligence is concerned. This is a 4-branch model of Mayer and Salovey. Right. The similar thing is being mentioned in our Bhagavad Gita as well. Right. When the concept of sthit pragna, that is emotionally stable person, is given. So the similar model has been used there. As of now, just make the diagram. I will come back to this diagram when I'm teaching you emotional intelligence in Indian context. Right. So just have a look at it. It is 4-branch model of Mayer and Salovey. There are 2 research scholars on which or on whose work we are going to take up the discussion. One is Mayer and Salovey, and the most important one is Daniel Goleman, right? Daniel Goleman ka perspective, you can use it in most of your answers, and we will just see how it is supposed to be used. Mayer and Salovey's perspective we do because it is very similar to what is being written in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita mein already we have talked about the concept of emotionally stable person, that is sthit pragna. तो ऐसी बात नहीं है कि इन्होंने बताया और तब हमको इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के बारे में पता चला, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, हमारी भगवत गीता में पहले ही दे रखा है. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? So the concept is sthit pragna, and they have clearly talked about in Bhagavad Gita that how Lord Krishna told this to Arjun, right? That how emotional intelligence have to be developed. So then the concept of Nishkam Karm was put forward, right? Similarly, he also talked about, or he told Arjun that what are the characteristic feature of an emotionally stable person. So that is there. Is that very clear? Okay. So just make this diagram and then we can continue. And once you've made the diagram, please let me know. Neha, we have not done anything. It is just the first diagram that is supposed to be made. Okay, I'll just read it for you. It is branch model of Mayer and Salovey. There are 4 aspects in emotional intelligence. हम बात कर रहे हैं, the next topic, which is the heading, is building blocks of emotional intelligence. Now, with respect to building blocks of emotional intelligence, there are 2 concepts which we are going to study. One, the perspective of Mayer and Salovey, and other is Daniel Goleman. Mayer and Salovey, it starts from emotional perception. Right. There are 4 stages in building of emotional intelligence. One is emotional perception. Second is emotional assimilation. Third is emotional understanding. And fourth is emotional management. What I have written under emotional perception is ability to be self-aware of the emotions and the ability to express them accurately. This is what I have written. Ability to be aware about your own emotions, at the same time you are able to express them accurately. That is emotional perception. Second is emotional assimilation. There are different emotions that you are going through. So you are able to distinguish between different emotions. At the same time, you are able to identify which emotion is facilitating your thought process. Which emotion is actually dominating your thought process. ऐसा तो होता नहीं at one particular time it is only one emotion that you are experiencing. You might be experiencing lot many emotions, but there is one emotion which is dominating your thought process. So you should have that ability of emotional assimilation, that you are able to differentiate between different emotions that you are experiencing, and at the same time you are able to identify which emotion of yours is facilitating or dominating your thought process. So the first step is emotional perception. The second step is emotional assimilation. The third step is emotional understanding. Ability to understand these complex emotions and also to understand the transition from one emotion to another. I told you, sometimes it is the primary emotion that you have experienced because of your exposure to the situation, right? However, that primary emotion can lead to secondary emotions as well. So you should be able to understand these complex emotions, as well as you are able to identify how one emotion is getting transitioned from one to another. And finally, of the stage of emotional intelligence is that one, you have able to perceive what is your emotion and express it. Another, you have been able to understand or identify which emotion is facilitating the thought process. Third, you are able to also understand these complex emotions and how you are moving or transitioning from one emotion to another. But it is the ultimate aspect of emotional intelligence, that is, you are able to manage your emotions. That is, you are not the prisoner of your own feeling. In fact, you are able to control your impulses. You are able to manage your emotions either by connecting with it or by disconnecting with it in any given situation. Is this very clear? Girdhar, is the pink color thing clear now? So, ability to manage emotion by connecting or disconnecting from them at any given situation. Ability to understand complex emotion and understand the transition from one emotion to another. Ability to be self-aware of emotion and express them accurately, and upar likha hai, distinguish between different emotions and identify which emotion is facilitating the thought process. Is this very clear? Is this clear? ठीक है. Next perspective that we have is with respect to Daniel Goleman. The next perspective which you often will be using is Daniel Goleman. The next perspective, and this you will be using time and again, right? So Daniel Goleman's perspective says there are 5 essential building blocks of emotional intelligence. You can get a direct question. What do you mean by emotional intelligence? What are the essential building blocks of emotional intelligence? That is the direct question one can get. Is that very clear? Okay. The first aspect of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. In fact, Aristotle says self-awareness is beginning of all wisdom. You should be aware about your own emotions. You should be aware about your own strengths, your own weaknesses, your own motivations. Because if you are a self-aware person, then do you realize that there would be realistic goal setting? In case there is realistic goal setting, there will be frequent goal achievement. If there is frequent goal achievement, there will be positive goal discrepancy. I'll explain. Self-awareness says that you should be aware about your emotions. You should be able to accurately perceive and express your emotions. Not only your emotions, you are also aware about your strengths, your weaknesses, your motivation, what motivates you in life. You should be aware about all these things. The more you are aware about your strengths, your weakness, what motivates you, what inspires you, accordingly, there will be realistic goal setting. Because you know your capacity and accordingly you are setting your goals. You know, one thing I keep on telling the aspirants, when aspirants ask the toppers, you know, what strategy has worked for you and what has not worked for you and all of that. But there's sometimes, which I really appreciate, is that you should listen to the strategy of every topper and then what suits you, you should accordingly utilize that, because every topper has their own story. And the people who have not cleared this exam, they also have a certain story, and you should listen to all those stories, and based on your strength, your weakness, you should try to imbibe the lessons. Is that very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? But then when you don't imbibe according to your strengths and weaknesses, but according to what they have done, then the goal setting is not realistic. So it is very important for realistic goal setting. You should be aware about your strengths, your weaknesses, your inspiration, your motivations, your emotions. Is that clear? Because the more realistic goal setting, there will be frequent goal achievement. And do you realize when there is frequent goal achievement, it is very motivating. So it is very important that you should be aware about your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, I'll just answer. Yes, the heading is building blocks of emotional intelligence. Under that, two perspective, Mayer and Salvi, other one is Daniel Goleman, right? Regarding dictation, if I have written something on the screen, then I'm not dictating, hence I will dictate. Okay. So Prabha, keep writing. Whatever is on the screen, write this much. Rest I will dictate. जब यहां तक लिख लो फ्रीक्वेंट गोल अचीवमेंट तक, तब मुझे बता देना. I'll give you example to make you understand. Done? Now, what do I mean when I say that it is important to be self-aware? Okay. Let us suppose that you are a working professional and for the entire day you've been working, like literally you are slogging in the office. In the evening, you were supposed to go back home and relax. However, you got stuck in the traffic. And because of the traffic, you got very agitated. Obviously, you had a long day at work. You had struggled at your workplace. And after that, you got stuck in like traffic for about, say, 2 hours. And it has really made you very agitated. You have become very, annoying because of the scenario. You went back home. And that agitation which happened because of the long day at work, because of you getting stuck in the traffic, that overpowered you. And when you were having interaction at your home with your family member, that irritation, that agitation, that frustration was getting reflected in your interaction with your family members. Is it clear? However, you were self-aware person. You knew that right now you are not in a right mood. And that is more because of the frustration that you have developed because of getting stuck in the traffic. So you will make a deliberate effort of not letting that frustration affect your interaction with your family members. That's the power and beauty of being self-aware. If you know which emotion is overpowering your thought process, what is the cause of that emotion, you will control that emotion because you are a self-aware person. And you will not let that negatively influence your interaction with other family members. Is this very clear? That is the example you can give while you're talking about self-awareness. Okay? Ab likho. Write down. The core of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. If you ask me, out of the 5, it is being established that the core of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. तो ये टॉपिक हम डिटेल में लेते हैं. The core of high emotional intelligence is self-awareness. That is the ability to accurately perceive, ये आप लिख चुके हो, the ability to accurately perceive our emotions, strengths, weakness and motivation. Ability to accurately perceive our emotion, strengths, weakness and motivations. Full stop. Write down benefits of self-awareness. Benefits of self-awareness. That's the heading. Benefits of self-awareness. First, it helps in self-evaluation. It helps in self-evaluation. That is, accepting constructive feedback. Accepting constructive feedback. Next, first is accepting constructive feedback. Next, understanding one's motivation and values. Understanding one's motivation and values helps the person to enjoy what they do, and keeps them focused in case of a setback. Keeps them focused in case of a setback. Keeps them focused in case of a setback. Third, since they are aware of their limitations, it refrains them from any unrealistic goal setting. Refrains them from any unrealistic goal setting. Next, it also helps them in dealing with external factors. It also helps them in dealing with external factors which cannot be controlled, and behave appropriately in adverse situations. Behave appropriately in adverse situation. Next, ability to relate and empathize. Last point, ability to relate and empathize with those in a similar situation, which creates sensitivity in the individual towards any issue. Create sensitivity in the individual towards any issue. Is this very clear? Can you think of the examples on the similar lines? The one which I gave you, that if you are stuck, एक example लिख लो यही वाला. Write down. इसी तरह से एग्जाम्पल्स एग्जाम में बनाने होंगे, तो एक एग्जाम्पल दे के बता रही हूं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, being stuck in a traffic after a long day at work, can make a person angry and agitated. Can make the person angry and agitated. Full stop. This may negatively affect one's interaction at home. This may negatively affect one's interaction at home. However, if the person is self-aware, then the person at least have an option. If the person is self-aware, then at least the person has the option to change the way he reacts. Matlab, the person has chosen not to get affected by the agitation which has been generated because of getting stuck in the traffic. So that's a deliberate choice that I would not let that traffic problem bother me. So that is the power of being self-aware. Is this very clear? Sometimes it happens that an individual is not aware about their motivation. For example, a person chose to become a bureaucrat but was not aware about his motivation. Maybe he had certain vested interest in being or becoming a bureaucrat. He is not denouncing the act of corruption, right? So he is perfectly fine with corruption. So it may happen that he indulges himself in the act of corruption, which will have a negative impact for the society at large. So you should be aware about your motivations. If you are choosing to become a public servant, you should be aware about the fact that you would not let your personal vested interest impact your services. You will not let corruption overpower your services, right? That has to be the understanding. At least when you start to begin with, you should be confident that you are preparing for this exam, you are joining public services because you want to serve the society. That should be your intention and you should be aware of it, right? So that's the point. Write down another example. For instance, an administrator may not be aware about their motivation, for delivering public services, As a result, while serving the district, he or she might indulge in corruption. He or she might indulge in corruption for personal gains. Might indulge in corruption for personal gains. Which not only will tarnish their image, which not only will tarnish their image, which not only will tarnish their image, but which not only will tarnish their image, but also impact the well-being of others. Tarnish their image, but also impact the well-being of others. Is that very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? Is self-awareness clear? On the similar lines, can you construct more examples? That's my main concern. That if you are a person who's self-aware about their own emotions, about their strength, weakness, motivation, accordingly, you will make right decision. Hence, one of the core component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, which even according to Aristotle is the beginning of all wisdom. Is this clear? You can make use of the diagrams also while you are writing the answer. For example, main components of emotional intelligence. ये बनाओ. This is what I want you to make. Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skill. Make this diagram. बिल्कुल स्निग्धा, बिल्कुल, absolutely. In fact, to be very honest, Snigdha, this self-awareness is one thing, and along with that, empathy, that is placing yourself. एक सेकंड लिखना नहीं, अभी मैं सामने खड़ी हूं, तुम लोग को दिखेगा भी नहीं, तो एक सेकंड सुन लो पहले. It's not only about self-awareness, it's also about the empathy. That's very important. And I don't know how many of you, मतलब भगवान ना करे आपको realize करने की जरूरत पड़ी हो, but I'm generally saying that this was the period of COVID, right? The second wave, and it was very challenging for most of us. And I can tell you this with my own experience, because obviously my father was also admitted in the hospital, and we all have faced the crisis, oxygen cylinder and everything. So I have personally seen that scenario. What I actually noticed were there were a lot of doctors who were very frustrated. They were not, but that's not their fault, to be very honest. इतना ज्यादा burden था. They are also away from their family members. There was too much of pressure. One after the other, the patients were coming. So, and obviously they were also understaffed. They were overwhelmed. They were working non-stop for such long hours. So for them getting, and we again and again asking, what is the status of the patient? You know, what is happening? Why aren't you doing anything? भाई ऐसा नहीं होता. जब इतनी बड़ी क्राइसिस आती है तो सब कोई थोड़ा थोड़ा परेशान हो जाते हैं. So that was the time when emotional intelligence would have helped a lot of people. Because if you can empathize with the doctor, then you would realize that even they are not at the fault. They want to save the patient, but the situation is grave. There are a lot of people who have not been able to be saved. So they are also overcoming the crisis situation. If we are in the crisis, they are also in the crisis. So they were being self-aware. There were a lot of doctors who were just trying to control their temper also. They were knowing that भाई हमारी भी fault नहीं है, हम भी अपने patient के लिए परेशान हैं, अपनी family member के लिए. And there were a lot of people also who were very considerate of this frustration of doctors, because they were also able to empathize with the doctor that it's not their fault. They are understaffed, they are overwhelmed, they are also feeling the threat about the safety and the concerns of their family member. So that was a situation. So in सारी situations of crisis में emotional intelligence is very important. अगर आज कोई मुझसे पूछे कैसी education system देनी चाहिए, so any education system which can help in developing or inculcating this essence of emotional intelligence, there can be nothing better than this. Because you not only need to be self-aware, you should also be able to empathize with others. You should be able to place yourself in their position and just try to understand why they are behaving in a certain manner. Is that very clear? Life बहुत आसान हो जाएगी. Is this very clear for everyone? ठीक है, लिखो. Self-awareness. Okay, Shantanu. Makes sense. Write down. Is everything visible now? Ability to control impulsive feelings and behavior. Ability to control impulsive feeling and behavior, manage emotion, propensity to hold judgment. You are not being judgmental about others, right? So self regulation. आप किसी को जज करना भी चाह रहे हो तो आप कर नहीं रहे हो. You are controlling that urge of being judgmental. Thinking before acting, that is self-regulation. There's a very famous saying which says that if you don't control your feelings, then feelings will control you. So one should not be the prisoner of their own feelings. They should learn to self-regulate. If you have that essence of self-regulation, then you would have integrity. Obviously, agar urge ho rahi hai corruption ki, but you are able to self-regulate yourself, integrity, trustworthiness. They are open to change because they are able to regulate themselves. Motivation, passion to work, energetic and persistent in pursuing goals. Their one's own emotion and drives and their effect on others. And their effect on others. Motivation, passion to work, energetic, persistent in pursuing goals. Motivations, never say die attitude. That is self-motivation. You should have that never say die attitude. They are the ones who are likely to thrive under adversity. ये point यहाँ लिख सकते हो features में. ऑप्टिमिज्म जहां लिखा है ना, इसी के आगे लिख लो. मैं तो अब यहां लिख नहीं सकती, ये वो बना दिया है मैंने ऑलरेडी. तो यहां पे ब्रैकेट में लिखो likely to thrive under adversity. Likely to thrive under adversity. Likely to thrive under adversity. These are the ones जो motivated लोग होते हैं. They take the responsibility for their failure. They take personal responsibility for the failure because they know they will do well. They will do well because they are motivated people. So they take responsibility, personal responsibility for the failure. They are the ones who are likely to thrive under adversity because they have optimistic attitude. Empathy, ability to understand the emotional profile of others. I believe this is very difficult. We just don't have a tendency to empathize with others. But however, if we learn this skill or we develop this skill, this world, this society would be such a better place to live in. Ability to understand emotional profile of others. Skilled in treating people according to their emotional reaction. कोई आप पे गुस्सा हो रहा है, आप उस पे और गुस्सा हो गए. अरे यार 2 मिनट सोचो ना, अपने आप को उसकी जगह पे रख के देखो. What might be the factor which is triggering that anger, annoyance in the other person? maybe after that you will not feel angry towards him. In fact, you will realize that maybe the person is not keeping well, maybe the person is going through any stress, and they are just looking for the avenues to vent out their stress. कुछ भी हो सकता है. Optimism में they are likely the one who will thrive under adversity. They are likely to thrive under adversity. Optimism, likely to thrive under adversity. बहुत पॉजिटिव लोग होते हैं ये. क्राइसिस का क्या यार, आती जाती रहती है. वन शुड लर्न टू सेल थ्रू द क्राइसिस सिचुएशन. ऑप्टिमिस्टिक. सर्विस ओरिएंटेशन, क्रॉस कल्चरल सेंसिटिविटी. अगर आप एम्पथाइज करोगे तो क्रॉस कल्चरल सेंसिटिविटी भी होगी. सोशल स्किल्स, proficiency in managing relationship and building networks. Proficiency in managing relationship and building networks. When you are empathetic towards other, then there is unconditional positive regards, because you're not judging the other person, you're placing yourself in the position of others, right? So there would be unconditional positive regards. Social skills का मतलब होता है you are being aware about the society, right? And on the other hand, you have the skills for managing your relationship. So you are aware about the society as well as you have the skill for relationship management. जैसे कुछ सोशल स्किल्स के एग्जाम्पल बताती हूं. पेशेंस, टॉलरेंस, टैक्टफुलनेस, सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर, सोशल मेमोरी बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है. इसको पढ़ाई की तरह मत देखो. डू नॉट सी द पेपर ऑफ एथिक्स ओनली फ्रॉम द प्रिज्म ऑफ दिस एग्जामिनेशन. सी इट फ्रॉम द प्रिज्म ऑफ लाइफ लेसन्स. We should develop those social skills. Social skills means you should be patient, you should be tolerant, you should be tactful, right? You should have sense of humor, right? Social memory, remembering important dates in life is very important, right? To manage your relationships. You should be an effective listener, very important component of managing relationships in the society. Is that clear? तो एक दो एग्जाम्पल्स दे लो. सोशल स्किल्स, फॉर एग्जाम्पल ब्रैकेट में लिखो द स्किल्स विच अलाउ अस टू हैंडल रिलेशनशिप इफेक्टिवली. फॉर एग्जाम्पल पेशेंस, टॉलरेंस, टैक्टफुलनेस, सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर, कुछ भी लिख सकते हो आप, इफेक्टिव लिसनिंग, social memory, etc. Patience, tolerance, tactfulness, sense of humor, social memory, effective listener, etc. Propensity to hold judgment matlab you are not immediately judging the other person. You are holding that tendency to judge. हमारे मतलब I don't know whether you guys realize it or not, that's a very human nature. We have a tendency to judge the other person without even knowing the other person. Because judgment देने पे कोई टैक्स थोड़ी ना लगता है. ये वाले जजमेंट की बात कर रही हूं मैं, not the proper judgment, right? तो किसी को जज करने में कोई टैक्स थोड़ी ना लग रहा है. कोई भी ओपिनियन बना लो. So if you have that urge to judge the other person and you are able to control that urge, that means you have the skill of self regulation. सेल्फ डेप्रिकेटिंग सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर, स्निग्धा, अपना मजाक बना लो खुद ही, ठीक है? यू शुड नॉट बी फियरफुल ऑफ पीपल मेकिंग फन ऑफ यू. मतलब अगर आप खुद का मजाक बना सकते हो ना, तो फिर कुछ नहीं फर्क पड़ता. बिकॉज इफ यू कैन क्रैक जोक्स ऑन योर ओन सेल्फ, देन नथिंग एल्स मैटर. बिकॉज फिर तो कोई और कुछ भी बोल ले, क्या ही फर्क पड़ेगा. ठीक है? इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? क्या रिपीट करूं? क्या रिपीट करना है? Are you asking me to repeat these social skills? क्या मतलब? आई डेंट अंडरस्टैंड. सोशल स्किल्स का अगर करना है तो टॉलरेंस, टैक्टफुलनेस, पेशेंस, सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर, सोशल मेमोरी, और क्या था? रिपीट दिस चार्ट अगेन. उत्तरी पूरा. ओके. We have building blocks of emotional intelligence. These are the 5 components. If the question comes with respect to building blocks, that's a direct answer that we have. What do you mean by self-awareness? You are being aware about your own emotions, strength, weakness, limitation, motivation, etc. If you are a self-aware person, what will happen? Obviously, you will have confidence in your own self. You will have realistic self-assessment. Not only that, constructive feedback hoga. You will be able to empathize with others. There would be a self-deprecating sense of humor. You would not find it difficult or odd on cracking jokes on your own self because you're a self-aware person. It doesn't make any difference, right? Second is self-regulation. It is very important that one should not become the prisoner of their own feelings. You should have the skill of regulating your emotions. Might be sometimes there is some negative emotion which has been generated and that is dominating our thought process. So we should have that skill of regulating that emotion so that we don't commit an act which otherwise or later we would regret about, right? So ability to control impulsive feelings and behavior, ability to manage your emotions, ability to control that urge of being judgmental towards others. You are thinking before acting. That's the most important thing, right? In case you are able to self-regulate, develop that skill of self-regulation, obviously it would result into development of integrity, trustworthiness. You will be flexible. You would not mind changing some aspect of your personality if you know that is wrong. Motivation. It talks more about self-motivation. So you have that passion to work. Motivation matlab the one who have the passion to work. They are the ones who are believed to be very optimistic. They are the one who can thrive under any kind of adversity. They are the one who take personal responsibility for any failure that they have ever faced in their life. They don't have that ego defensive attitude कि अपनी गलती का भी ठीकरा दूसरे पे फोड़ दो. वैसा attitude नहीं होता है. If they believe they have failed in certain act, they will take a personal responsibility because they are optimistic that with more efforts, with the right strategy in the right direction, they will become successful one or the other day. Is that very clear? So they're very energetic and very persistent, consistent, diligent, disciplined towards pursuing the goals. Obviously, if you have such personality, that shows you are achievement driven, optimistic, you are committed towards the goals of the organization. Empathy. Empathy means imaginatively placing yourself in the position of others. And in case you are able to do that, you will be able to understand the emotional profile of the other person. You will be able to understand why a certain person is behaving in a certain manner. And accordingly, based on their emotional reaction, you will be able to deal with them. Is that clear? So if the person who has the empathy, they have the service orientation. They are cross-culturally sensitive. They give unconditional positive regards to others. It helps in developing social capital. Social capital matlab more trust, faith among each other, because you are able to empathize with the other person. So it leads to development of social capital. It leads to development of unconditional positive regards towards other, where you are not judging the other person on the basis of class, caste, education, ethnicity, gender, etc. Clear hai? Then social skills. Social skills basically talks about the awareness of the society, at the same time management of relationship. So it has two components to it, social skills, social awareness and relationship management. So it says there are certain skills which are very important to manage your relationships effectively. For example, tolerance, for example, patience, for example, sense of humor, for example, social memory, for example, being an effective listener, for example, tactfulness. All of these skills are very important in managing any kind of relationship. Is that clear? So if the person has social skills, you will see that the person has leadership quality, the person has persuasive skills, the person is very much oriented towards teamwork. They are the one who have the collaborative approach, right? They are the one who are able to accommodate diversity. They are the one who have conflict management skills. हाँ स्निग्धा, yes, yes. Because you are comfortable in your own skin. That's the point. You just have to be comfortable in your own skin. That's it. You should be perfectly fine with your physicality. There are a lot of people who are not good with their communication skills. It's okay. You should always strive to improve. But then you should not be intimidated by these aspects, right? So you should be proud of your personality. You should be proud of how you look, how you carry yourself. You should be comfortable in your skin. That is what it means, right? That it doesn't matter. You're a self-aware person. It doesn't matter. You can very easily crack jokes on yourself. अब सब सही है या अब भी कुछ रीड करना है? हो गया? आगे बढ़ू? Write down. Next, write down. EI becomes an important parameter. EI becomes an important parameter in workspace, in administration, governance, etc. EI becomes an important parameter in workplace, administration, governance, etc. Now, wait. Not necessarily you will get a direct question like this. If I give you a question, just write down a question and tell me, will you be able to answer this? Write down. Emotional intelligence is an important parameter. Write down a question. Emotional intelligence is an important parameter as one aspires to move up the ladder, as one aspires to move up the ladder in a competitive environment. In a competitive environment. Discuss. Emotional intelligence is an important parameter as one aspires to move up the ladder in a competitive environment. Discuss. You have 5 minutes, right? Do not think much. Just tell me, based on whatever I have given information, thoda bahut jo bhi, in yesterday's lecture as well as in today's lecture, can you prepare a 10 marker answer? ये चार्ट अभी भी आपके सामने है. Based on this, just think and tell me, can you prepare the answer for this question? You can attempt. ठीक है? मेंस का रिजल्ट आ गया है क्या? पता नहीं। तृप्ति, चेक करना ना, मेंस का रिजल्ट आया है क्या? Okay, you will be able to answer. That's the good thing. That is what I was looking for. Can we proceed? Yay, I'm happy. मैं आपको यही बताना चाह रही हूँ, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक है. You get certain set of questions. Okay, let me tell you one thing. The best thing about emotional intelligence is, okay, so I can see that most of you can answer the question. एक बात का हमेशा याद रखना before answering ethics का question. See, let me give you certain very key points. First, everything cannot be taught because we really don't know what's going in the mind of UPSC before they are framing the questions. ठीक है? Sometimes we are able to predict, sometimes we are not able to. ठीक है? But one thing I'm very confident that नहीं नहीं नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है शांतनु की सिर्फ चार्ट बना देने से हो जाएगा, तो थोड़ा लिंक कर देना चार्ट को. ठीक है? So that's one thing. Second important aspect is there are two set of questions from emotional intelligence which I have noticed that the kind of questions they have asked. One, either they are asking the question on emotions, anger, happiness, hatred, jealousy. These are the set of questions. Another set of questions that they are asking on emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? What are the building blocks of emotional intelligence? Can emotional intelligence be learned? Then role of emotional intelligence in administration. Then how the situation of crisis of conscience can be addressed if through emotional intelligence. So these are clearly defined two set of questions. Now you must be thinking कि मैम ये first set of question on emotions कहाँ है? तो आपको याद है मैंने आपको एक टेबल पूरा चार्ट बना के दिया था, पूरा राइटअप दिया था एथिक्स डेफिनेशन का. उसमें मैंने हैप्पीनेस की क्या डेफिनेशन होती है, देन द प्रोज एंड द कॉन्स एंड द एग्जांपल्स, देन आई गेव यू एंगर, हेट. So now what you need to do is that on the similar lines you have to prepare the content with respect to few of the emotions, क्योंकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्वेश्चन या तो इमोशंस पे बनेगा या इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस पे बनेगा. These are the two set in which the question is asked. Is that very clear? ठीक है? Is this very clear? ठीक है? So can we proceed now? So this is one aspect about emotional intelligence. The next heading डालो. Role of EI in administration. Role of EI in administration and governance. Role of EI. नहीं है? Okay. So, role of EI in administration and governance. Now hold. Just listen. You don't have to follow in detail. वो जब moral thinkers वगैरह करोगे तब पढ़ ही लोगे. As of now, just listen. Actually, there was a time period in which we had the school of thoughts on the lines of Max Weber and Frederick Winslow Taylor. If you've done your public administration, then you might have studied them in detail. If you have studied about Taylor, वैसे नहीं भी पढ़ा है तो कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है, बहुत सिंपल सा कॉन्सेप्ट है, वो यहाँ पे मेंशन कर देती हूँ. According to Taylor, he believed that in an organization, any organization, in order to ensure efficiency, there is a rule of thumb which says you have to identify one best way of doing a task. And accordingly, you will choose a person who can perform that task according to that one best way. And it is believed that the payment which is given to the person is the most rewarding thing. So the individual's boredom, his frustration, his disenchantment was totally ignored. It was considered as not so significant, right? Because it is believed that a person is only motivated by the payment which is given to the person, that is the salary, right? So his individual frustration, detachment, boredom at the workplace does not matter, right? And the efficiency of the organization depends upon that one best way of doing the task. And the person who's performing that one best way of doing the task is mere cog in the wheel or in the machine, whichever way you can put. So a very dehumanized approach was taken by Frederick Winslow Taylor, who believed that the efficiency of the organization is determined by that one best way of doing the task. And once that one best way of doing the task is being identified, then the person is there to perform that task according to the as prescribed, right? And in order to ensure that a person remains motivated to perform the task, that can be ensured by the means of payment or salary. The individuals connect with the organization, the interpersonal relationship, the emotions doesn't matter. Is that very clear? On the similar lines, when Max Weber has given his study on bureaucracy, there also he talked about that how there should be impersonality. The efficiency and the effectiveness of the organization will be harmed if human emotions are influencing the rational decisions. So even Weber, while talking about bureaucracy, has talked about that the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization will be negatively impacted if human emotions are influencing rational decisions. So they also talked about dehumanization. They also talked about impersonality, and it has been regarded as a specific virtue of bureaucracy. You should not let your personal emotions impact your rational decisions, because anyhow, initial belief was that emotion obstructs rational decision making. However, in the later stages, this idea of Weber and Taylor was contradicted when there was emergence of Elton Mayo. He is known as father of human relations school of thought. So Elton Mayo is known as the father of human relations school of thought. And he identified through his studies that it is the interpersonal relationship in the organization which impacts the productivity and the efficiency. So after a certain point of time, the working condition, the salary is no longer motivating. In fact, it is the informal groups that you form within the formal organization or the interpersonal relationships that you develop in the organization. It is the culture, the work culture which is existing in the organization, the attitude of your supervisor, your colleagues, your subordinate, they have more influence in your productivity, in your efficiency, rather than the work condition or the pay. Is that very clear? And it is this human relations school of thought which was initiated by Elton Mayo. It was further taken forward by Goleman and Mayer and Salovey, who have identified the role of emotional intelligence in governance. It says all governance is people's governance, all service is people's service. Hence, emotional intelligence is the most essential component of effective component of administration and governance. Is this very clear? How Elton Mayo established that man is more than a machine. So there has to be personalization of work. You cannot go for impersonalization. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. So very quickly एक आध लाइन में लिखते चलो. If you have studied PubAd तब तो ठीक है, डिटेल में ही पढ़ा होगा, और नहीं भी पढ़ा है तो इतना बस जान लेना काफी है. Is that clear? When I had public administration as the optional, the first thinker which we studied was Frederick Winslow Taylor, scientific management theory. So start. लिखो. Role of EI in governance. Role of EI in governance. All governance is people's governance. All governance is people's governance. All service is public service. All service is public service. Next, pointers में लिखते जाना. Relationships are the DNA of governance. Relationships are the DNA of governance. Relationships are the DNA of governance. If public administrators, if public functionaries, कुछ भी लिख लो, if public functionaries failed to develop trustworthy relationship with others, failed to develop trustworthy relationship with others, there can be no governance. There can be no governance. In the initial period, thinkers like Max Weber and Taylor emphasized on impersonality, and dehumanization. Full stop. With respect to theory on bureaucracy, it has been assumed that efficiency and effectiveness would be harmed. Efficiency and effectiveness would be harmed if human emotions influence rational actions. If human emotions influence rational action. Full stop. Similarly, with respect to scientific management theory of Taylor, they were concerned with maximizing organizational output and efficiency, whereas workers' emotional issues such as boredom, frustration were dismissed as negligible concerns. They treated man as just the cog in the wheel. Full stop. However, it was Elton Mayo who for the first time recognized that the most significant factor affecting organizational productivity are the interpersonal relationships developed in the organization. Full stop. It is the attitude of the supervisor, colleagues, subordinate, the norms and values of informal groups, which influences the efficiency. Hence, man is more than a machine. Full stop. Last. Mayo's work was followed by Goleman. Hence, man is more than a machine. Mayo's work was followed by Mayer and Salvi and Goldman. Mayo's work was followed by Mayer and Salvi and Goldman. Full stop. Last line. Okay, I think you guys are asking me to repeat पहले का जो line है. जब मैं impromptu बोलती हूँ ना तो मुझे ऐसे याद नहीं आता है. रुको. I was making you write something about that how it is the attitude of the supervisor, colleagues, subordinate, the norms and values of the informal group which has a significant influence on the efficiency and productivity of the organization. Hence, man is more than a machine. I think so. This is what I said. हाँ, अब सही है. Attitude of supervisor, colleague, subordinate, as well as the norms and values of the informal group in the organization has a significant influence on the productivity, efficiency of the organization. Hence, man is more than a machine. ठीक है. Next, Mayo's work was followed by the researchers such as Mayer and Salvi and Goldman. Full stop. Their efforts resulted in development of understanding. Their efforts resulted in the development of understanding that governance encompasses set of relationship between government and citizen and developing trusting relationship calls for display of social and interpersonal skills. Therefore, the concept of EI has become very valid. Full stop. In fact, I'll repeat. Therefore, the concept of EI has become very valid. Full stop. In fact, administrative success and failure is not based on technical proficiency alone. Administrative success and failure is not based on technical proficiency alone, but more upon how effectively can the public functionary, how effectively can the public functionary display their EI skills, display their EI skills to manage interaction with people around them. To manage interaction with people around them. To manage interaction with people around them. Is this very clear? Right? Now my question to you is, if I ask, what is the role of EI in administration or governance? Can you write a 10 marker? I'm just asking. Can you think of some points? Okay, let's forget about 10 marker or 20 marker. Give me some points. If you are a public administrator and you are having emotional intelligence, how it is going to benefit you? In what aspect of public administration? In what aspect of public service or governance your EI skill is going to help you? Give me some points. Give me some points. You are a district magistrate having emotional intelligence. Now you tell me how it is going to help you in administration and governance. Okay, Snigdha, I'll take few points. It helps in developing interpersonal skills, right? So you will be able to ensure people's governance, right? You will be more empathetic towards the need of the public. So I'll take that point. Better understanding of public problems, as Pranav has said. Absolutely, policy making, policy implementation, both can be ensured. Why? Because you are empathetic, you are more aware about the problems of the public. Absolutely correct. I'll take these points. लिखते जाना जो पॉइंट्स हम क्लास में क्या हो गया भैया, कोई दिक्कत है क्या? एक सेकेंड गाइस. हाँ, लिखते जाओ. द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. It will ensure better policy making and implementation. Why? Because we are more aware about the problems of the public, right? We know about their emotions, their mood, so we can convince them with respect to the implementation of any policy. Absolutely correct, right? We can persuade them with respect to any implementation. That is Vineet. Absolutely correct, Vineet. Better interpersonal skills. So there would be more trust, more faith among the public with respect to administration. The power distance between the administration and the citizen will reduce. Because you are an emotionally intelligent person. That means you have social skills, you are effective listener, you are empathetic, right? You are not being judgmental about others, right? So you have good communication skills. So that power distance between the administration and the citizen will reduce. It will ensure efficient grievance redressal mechanism. You will always be available to address the grievances of the public. So in true sense, public governance can be ensured. ठीक है? Absolutely correct, Rinki. Absolutely correct. Listening to each and everyone. Priya, fine. It will also ensure constructive resolution of the conflict, right? Amit, absolutely correct. So prevent नहीं कहेंगे conflict of interest. अच्छा, prevent भी कह सकते हैं. अच्छा, you are saying if you are emotionally intelligent, so you can self-regulate yourself. So can we put it this way, Amit, that it can ensure more transparency, honesty, integrity in administration, because you will be able to regulate your impulses to indulge in corruption. Self-regulation, ठीक है, तो कुछ नहीं करना, वो जो 5 बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स है इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के, उनको सोच सोच के आपको आंसर लिखना है. एब्सोल्युटली वी कैन राइट दिस पॉइंट. लिखते जाओ. It can help you to control the urge of indulging into corruption, hence thereby ensuring honesty, integrity, right? Most importantly, if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you also have courage. You have that risk taking ability, right? You can initiate change in the positive direction. So write down. Write down. Emotionally intelligent officials will have risk taking ability, will have risk taking ability. They can thrive under adversity, no matter how much crisis is there, how much pressure is there. ठीक है, बहुत बार political pressure बहुत high होता है, ठीक है, seniors का pressure बहुत बार high होता है, crisis of conscience क्रिएट हो जाता है, वेर यू आर गेटिंग सर्टन इंस्ट्रक्शंस बट मन नहीं मान रहा है वो इंस्ट्रक्शन. सो इफ यू आर एन इमोशनली इंटेलिजेंट पर्सन, यू कैन थ्राइव अंडर दैट एडवर्स सिचुएशंस. इज दैट क्लियर? नेक्स्ट, you can challenge, you have the ability to challenge the status quo if there is some practice which is wrong. So you have that courage, the ability to challenge the status quo and bring about changes. Bring about changes. Why? Because you are flexible. You don't shy away from initiating new things in workplace. Aditya, work-life balance. Perfect. Perfect. They can maintain work-life balance. They would not let their personal issues affect professional life or professional life affect personal issues. So they can maintain work-life balance. They will be able to take rational, practical decisions. Rational, practical decisions. They can act as a role model by walking the talk. Emotionally intelligent person ho, you can walk the talk. And by walking the talk, you can influence others to act. By walking the talk, you can influence others or motivate others to act. Motivate others to act. Motivate others to act. Did we write it will also ensure amicable work environment? It will also ensure amicable work environment. Amicable work environment. We will be, the administrators will learn to prioritize the work. They will be able to multitask if you are emotionally intelligent. They will be able to prioritize the work. They will be able to multitask. They will be able to diffuse social conflict. They will be able to effectively diffuse social conflict. Bilkul, Pandurang, absolutely adversity. Flood, disaster management, right? Rinki, absolutely calm in tough situation. That's what we were talking about. You will respond to the situation rather than reactive to the situation. Absolutely correct. Efficiency, effectiveness, service delivery will improve. Bilkul sahi. Objective decision making, optimism. Neha, to have better work culture, citizen-centric administration, trust, better implementation, quick decision making, compassion. Absolutely correct. Pranav, that's what we talked about. Corruption, brilliant. Manage the problem of crisis of conscience, Sujata. Absolutely correct, bache. Power distance will reduce, the grievances of the people will be addressed efficiently. Is that very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? See, Even if I wouldn't have told you, you guys have given me the answer. And these are the kind of questions which is asked by UPSC. तो इसमें कोई बहुत रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, बहुत नॉर्मल से क्वेश्चन है. एक बार बस वो 5 बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स पता होने चाहिए एंड यू कैन राइट द आंसर. एक क्वेश्चन लिखो. Explaining the concept of emotional intelligence, explaining the concept of emotional intelligence, highlight its role in administration. Explaining the concept of emotional intelligence, highlight its role in administration. Highlight its role in administration. Highlight its role in administration. Bridging the gap of democracy by ensuring trust of people. Perfect. Perfect. People should get that feel, no, that this administration is for them. The governance is by the people, for the people, right? Of the people. So the gaps in democracy has been bridged. Absolutely correct. In fact, they can ensure collaborative approach. If you are an emotionally intelligent person, you can ensure the participation of the public. Remember, I told you one incident of Ghat Patila district where Swachh Bharat mission had to be implemented, and the public official there, district magistrate, he made use of the services of the children in that area, divided the boys and girls in 2 teams, Rani Lakshmi Bai and Subhash Chandra Bose, and it was their job to blow the whistle if they find anyone defecating in the open, and keep on blowing the whistle till the person doesn't get up from there, right? So obviously people started feeling humiliated that, you know, the children are making fun. और बच्चों को बड़ा मजा आ रहा था ये सब करने में. Obviously they were getting the feeling, लड़कियां, I'm Rani Lakshmi Bai, the guys were like Subhash Chandra Bose. So that revolutionary fervor, we will bring about change. And actually it worked. Within few months that entire area was open defecation free, because it was very humiliating for the adults now to defecate in the open. बच्चे वहां पे सीटी लेके खड़े और बजाए जा रहे हैं सीटी. So that is, you know, that's the power to convince, to ensure participation of the community for the betterment of the community itself. So emotional intelligence hai. Is that very clear? Then there was an incident where a district magistrate, I think if I'm not mistaken, Pankaj Jain, I think naam hai. I'm sorry if I have taken the wrong name. In fact, he set an example by sending his child to Anganwadi. Because that, do you realize why do people do not send their kids to the government school or, you know, Anganwadi? Because they believe that it is not providing good services. Now he worked for the upliftment of the Anganwadi, betterment of the Anganwadi, and he walked the talk. He was not only preaching that nahi apne bachcho ko Anganwadi bhejo, he also practiced. He sent his kid to Anganwadi to set an example for others to follow. That is emotionally intelligent person. आप अपने आंगनवाड़ियों को, अपने स्कूल्स को, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स को इतना अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर दो कि आपके बच्चे जाएं वहां पे पढ़ने. आप खुद भेजो अपने बच्चों को वहां पढ़ने के लिए. सो दैट्स द पावर. हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. यू कैन एब्सोल्युटली गिव दीज एग्जांपल्स. If you can think of the examples, then you can give the examples. Alex Paul Menon. I think in one of the classes I gave you the example of Bull 2 experiment. मुझे अब याद नहीं आ रहा मैंने दिया है कि नहीं, फिर बता देती हूँ अगर दिया भी होगा तो. Bull 2 बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग था ये. There was a tribal area and एक सेकेंड. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल घंटी बजाओ. Campaign in Uttar Pradesh to curb domestic violence. Absolutely correct. Bell बजाओ. Absolutely, yes, that was the incident. बिल्कुल लिखो ये examples. यही सब तो न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ते हो. And the more you search for such examples, the more effective will be your answer. If you're giving that they can bring about change, they can influence, there would be better grievance redressal. And if you can think of such examples, write that in your exam. Nothing better than this. So whether it is Bell Bajao, whether it is that Ghat Patila district's example, whether it is example of Pankaj Jain, whether it is Alex Paul Menon, and you can look for so many such examples, right? That they do not fear. In fact, I'm just forgetting the name. There is a very कुछ नहीं, आप Google करो और Google करके आप डालो that IS, IPS, IRS officers who have done significant work. You will get immense examples. Absolutely correct. See, so you have to give such examples. राइट. सो द पॉइंट हियर इज, एक बुल टू एक्सपेरिमेंट था, उसमें क्या था कि ट्राइबल्स थे एक एरिया में, एंड द ऑफिसर वांटेड टू नो दैट व्हाई देयर आर सो मेनी स्कीम्स व्हिच आर बीइंग प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर द ट्राइबल पीपल, बट स्टिल द schemes are not giving the desired result. So later he got to know that although we are preparing schemes for the tribal people, but they are not reaching to the tribal people because they don't have the awareness about the schemes. And maybe they don't have the awareness about the schemes because those schemes have not been conveyed to them in a language which they can understand. Okay. So once it so happened that there were 5-6 kids were sitting there and they were busy fiddling with the phone. So then he asked कि बच्चे क्या कर रहे हो, what are you doing and everything. So they said बुलटू कर रहे हैं. So आज की बात नहीं है, पहले की है. So they were like बुलटू कर रहे हैं. So then he went away. He's like कुछ कर रहे होंगे. Later he realized what they were trying to say is Bluetooth कर रहे हैं. They were basically using Bluetooth technology to transfer the content from one phone to another. So from there the word came Bultu. They were not able to say Bluetooth, so they were saying Bultu. So as a result, the district magistrate, he came up with the idea of Bultu experiment. And Bultu experiment was basically to convey or to generate awareness about the schemes or the provisions in their own language, right? So to make tribal governance more efficient and effective. So if you search, you will get innumerable examples on Google. Is that very clear? Bilkul, absolutely. District Magistrate of Gopalganj eating midday meal which was cooked by Dalit. Absolutely. In fact, ये तो case study भी UPSC ने पूछी थी that if the upper caste people refuse to consume the food cooked by the Dalit cook, then what needs to be done? Bilkul, absolutely correct. So did you get the point that when you are writing such answers, you can think of examples and just Google it. You will get a list of examples there. Is this clear for everyone? Can we proceed now? Next topic. Can EI be learned? Can EI be learned? Can EI be learned? Mains result is out. Okay, let's continue. Can EI be learned? See, somebody I think asked me in yesterday's lecture as well that do we develop these qualities or do we have? And if you remember, I said that sometimes it is said that this is inherent, but many a times it is that it can be developed as well, right? So what needs to be done? Likho, write it down. अपनी handwriting में लिखो. मेरी हैंडराइटिंग पता नहीं हर बार समझ आएगी कि नहीं आएगी. So write it in your own handwriting. I'm just dictating it for you. It can be evolved and developed, but it depends upon certain factors. These are the factors which will ensure whether EI can be learned or not. The first, motivation. Learning EI skills require commitment and conscious practice and training to improve EI. You should be committed. There has to be a deliberate conscious effort. ऐसे नहीं होता कि रात में दवाई पी, गुट्टी पी और सुबह we are emotionally intelligent. Many a times you will have a urge to react in certain way. Many a times you will have the urge to, give to be angry. Many a times you will be defensive, you will be offensive, you will be counter reactive. Many a times you will have the tendency to judge others, to succumb to your impulses, right? Or to your greed, desire. That is the time you have to make deliberate effort. You have to recall all those value system teachings which have been given to you. You have to learn to control your anger. You have to count 10 on your fingers. Example दे रही हूँ. So basically a deliberate effort, a commitment has to be made if you want to develop this skill of emotional intelligence. So first it requires commitment, conscious practice and training to improve EI. Next, willingness to honestly evaluate your own emotions and drives. Willingness to honestly evaluate. You cannot just ignore, right? You should have the willingness to actually evaluate, to face the reality, your own emotions and drivers. तो पहली चीज तो आप में खुद में मोटिवेशन होना चाहिए. यू शुड बी मोटिवेटेड इनफ to develop this skill. Once you are having that motivation, you are honestly agreeing to evaluate your emotions and drivers, then the next thing which comes into place is well designed intervention, where we are providing, there should be a proper, let us say, proper survey, proper technique, proper practice, where you are giving accurate feedback about how others perceive you. This will help you to contemplate your own behavior. Individual gets a clear picture of what needs to be improved. Hence, one can practice specific behavior which will help in enhancing the targeted competence. लिख लो तो बताना. Guys, if you have written this, please let me know. हाँ हाँ हाँ, रिमझिम पूरा लिखना है. Initially I thought I'll give this, but then I know वो घंटों लग जाते हैं. There are so many days the things does not get uploaded, then you guys also forget to read all these things. So that is why it is important कि एक जगह सारा कंटेंट होना चाहिए, बिकॉज ये कुछ गिने चुने क्वेश्चंस हैं जो पूछे जाएंगे. नेक्स्ट, how emotional intelligence can be developed in case you have flexibility in your attitude. Very important, you need to have flexibility in your attitude. So people who already have better social skills, more empathy, more self-awareness, the chances of they developing emotional intelligence is very high. Otherwise, with flexibility in attitude, you can learn these skills. And finally, no matter how much we talk in theory, application is what matters. So you have to make a deliberate effort to implement emotional intelligence in your everyday life, in your real life situations. And the more you make effort, the more you will get examples to write in the exam. पूछते हैं ना, in your socio-cultural life, give an example where have you applied emotional intelligence. Rimjim, I will to give, but I just hope it gets uploaded. That's the only thing. ठीक है, I'll just forward it to the team. But please आप लोग लिख भी लो ना, एक जगह कंटेंट होना चाहिए, नहीं तो बाद में when you will be revisiting, you will be like, अरे मैम ने तो ये पढ़ाया ही नहीं. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, तो लिख लो एक जगह. I'll just ask the team to upload this also. Okay. Girdhar, just wait. Just write this much, then I'll show you the previous slide. ये लिख लिया क्या सबने? EI should be made the part of school curriculum. It is a key in nurturing young minds towards successful life. इनफैक्ट मैंडेटरी कर देना चाहिए वर्क प्लेस पे भी, स्कूल में भी, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में भी, द कोर्स ऑन EI. At least make that deliberate effort of inculcating emotional intelligence. Can I show the previous slide? This is the previous slide. गिरधर जल्दी से देखो. Write down a question. We are just left with one more topic. We are just left with one more topic, that is EI in Indian context. With this, emotional intelligence comes to an end. Vineet, you want me to show you the previous slide? Write down a question. Write down the quotation. Write down the question. COVID-19 pandemic, एक क्वेश्चन लिखो. COVID-19 pandemic the COVID-19 pandemic has brought with itself an environment of uncertainties and hardship. COVID-19 pandemic had brought with itself an environment of uncertainties and hardship. Full stop. In this context, discuss the significance of emotional intelligence. In this context, discuss the significance of emotional intelligence in dealing with the situation. In dealing with the situation. In dealing with the situation. 10 marker. Tell me, can you answer this question? हेलो हेलो, हाँ ठीक है, थैंक यू. Uh, yeah, so the question is, it's Publilis Cirrus. Publilis Cirrus. Publilius Publilis Cirrus. ठीक है? Okay, so yeah, where were we? So sorry for this disruption. Actually, the battery of the mic went down. Okay, so yeah, let's come back. So what we were basically discussing, I was saying that the one question which I gave you with respect to COVID, I think now you can answer that. Okay? We can talk about our perspective towards fake news, false news, our perspective with respect to fear, panic, our perspective with respect to giving social comfort, to be an effective listener to the families who are going through the crisis, our perspective with respect to showing empathy, right, towards the frontline workers, whether it is police officials, whether it is the health personals, and the role of ASHA workers, the role of Panchayati Raj institutions, right? So all of that can be incorporated while you are writing this answer. Is that very clear? So you will start with COVID-19 pandemic. You will talk about how it has created, it has been devastating for the physical and mental health, and how EI can play a very significant role in managing such uncertainties and hardship. So whether it is self-awareness, regulation, motivation to thrive under the adverse situation, right? There have been such great examples where people have been suffering from COVID, but still they were acting as a source of motivation for others, right? Then how empathy, social skills can enable you to overcome this situation of crisis. So always keep in mind those 5 building blocks and you will be able to write the answer. Is that very clear? ठीक है. Establishing emotional connect with the people, then reduce the spread of false and fake news, showing empathy, positive relationship, in maintaining healthy environment in home, workplaces, public sphere, then awareness campaigns so as to sensitize people to practice empathy towards vulnerable, affected, frontline workers, then listening, understanding what the employee is feeling at the workplace, constructive criticism देना, ठीक है, act of kindness show करना, share करना लोगों के साथ अपनी problems. So whatever you feel like, you can write. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. You will start with COVID-19, you will talk about emotional intelligence, what are the building blocks, and applying those building blocks, you can write the answer. Is this clear? So the last topic that we are left with is emotional intelligence in Indian context. Give the heading, emotional intelligence in Indian context. Emotional intelligence, if I talk about in Indian context, then it has been mentioned under Bhagavad Gita. Under Bhagavad Gita, there is a concept of sthit pragna. Sthit pragna basically means emotionally stable person. Is that very clear? Now, first the question arises before emotionally intelligence, the concept of sthit pragna. The question which arises is, why do people tend to deviate from this situation? Why the situation of emotional turmoil even develops, right? So that is what is being mentioned in your Bhagavad Gita. That is what is mentioned in our Bhagavad Gita. Is that very clear? So basically, it has created. Rekho pehle. Lord Krishna has mentioned about the root cause of all emotional turmoils. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, when he was talking to Arjun, he talked about what are the root cause of all the emotional turmoil. See, it totally depends. You can make references to other aspects also, but I think Bhagavad Gita में बहुत अच्छे से mention किया हुआ है emotional intelligence के बारे में, so we can borrow from here. अगर आप ये लिखोगे तो your answer will be enriched. So Lord Krishna talks about how desire and anger is the root cause of all emotional turmoils. When you have a desire for something, when you have an attachment with something, you have the longing to fulfill that desire. And once that desire is not getting fulfilled, it results into development of anger. Once you develop anger, you become delusional. Once you become delusional, your capacity to differentiate between right and wrong gets crippled. And that's the beginning. Bilkul Manish, you can do that. Yes, you can do that. Absolutely. Yes. Is this clear? So when the concept of Sthit Pragnya was being spoken about under Bhagavad Gita, then Lord Krishna first highlighted what are the root cause of all the emotional turmoil, right? So it was found that desire and anger are the two main reasons which leads to the downfall of any individual. So when you have an attachment to an object and नहीं नहीं ये लिखते जाओ रिमझिम इसमें क्या डिक्टेट करूं the root cause, see, all I wanted to do is that ये तो concept है in general, but आप mention कर सकते हो कि this is also written in our Bhagavad Gita, बस इतना है, ठीक है. सो हमें ये तो पता है कि ये तो ऑब्वियसली लॉर्ड कृष्णा ने बोला भी हुआ है एंड इस पे तो गौतम बुद्ध ने भी बोला हुआ है कि डिजायर और एंगर इट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द डाउनफॉल ऑफ द पीपल. तो मेन इशू यहां पर यह है कि डिजायर एंड एंगर आर द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वाइस एज इन अनडिजायरेबल ट्रेट, राइट? वर्च्यू इज डिजायरेबल, vice is undesirable. So desire and anger is the root cause for our downfall, right? So when you have a desire, you have an attachment, and when that desire is not getting fulfilled, it generates anger. When you become angry, you become delusional. When you become delusional, your ability to differentiate between right and wrong gets crippled. Is that very clear? For example, अगर हम रामायण की बात करें तो रामायण में भी Ravan was a great astrologer. He was a great scholar. He was so well versed with Vedas, and he was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, right? And in fact, his expertise in the statecraft was also recognized by the others, right? So the point here is that he had all these qualities, but then his desire कह लो या his anger कह लो, it overpowered his wisdom. He could not differentiate that abducting Mata Sita was a wrong thing to do, right? So he could not understand that what he did was wrong, right? So that overpowered his wisdom. So that resulted into his downfall. So the root cause of an individual's downfall is desire and anger, right? In fact, his expertise in statecraft was so recognized that Lord Ram asked Lakshman to learn this expertise from Ravan. So Ravan was known to be a great devotee of Lord Shiva. He was known to be a great scholar. He was known to be a great astrologer. He was known to have the expertise in statecraft, but his desire had overpowered his wisdom. He could not differentiate between right and wrong. As a result, he abducted Mata Sita, and as a result, it was responsible for the downfall. So, did you get the point? You can cite examples, right? तो आप रामायण से, महाभारत से, you can cite these examples. Is that very clear? There is a very famous aspect, रश्मि रति, रामधारी सिंह दिनकर, अगर सुना होगा तो बहुत अच्छे से उसमें भी यही बात लिखी है कि जब नाश मनुष्य पे छाता है तो पहले विवेक मर जाता है, राइट? सो देयर इज अ वेरी गुड एस्पेक्ट, फ्यू लाइन्स आर देयर. मैत्री की राह बताने को, सबको सुमार्ग पर लाने को, दुर्योधन को समझाने को, भीषण विध्वंस बचाने को. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? भगवान हस्तिनापुर आए, एक संदेशा लेकर आए, दो न्याय दो तो आधा दो, यदि उसमें कोई बाधा हो तो दे दो केवल 5 ग्राम, रखो बाकी धरती तमाम, हम वहीं पे खुशी से रह लेंगे, परिजन पर असीना उठाएंगे. सो देयर इज अ वेरी नाइस लाइन्स व्हिच आर रिटन इन रश्मि रति, एंड दैट कैन ऑल्सो बी टेकन रेफरेंस टू. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? इनफैक्ट इट इज बीन सेड दैट उसी लाइन्स में लिखा हुआ है कि जब नाश मनुष्य पर छाता है तो पहले विवेक मर जाता है. सो व्हेन यू हैव दैट डिजायर एंड एंगर, देन योर अबिलिटी टू डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन राइट एंड रॉन्ग गेट्स क्रिपल्ड. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? एग्जैक्टली, विनाश काल विपरीत बुद्धि. मुझे ये बड़ी अच्छी लगती है. अगर आपको कभी लिखना हो तो आप लिख भी सकते हो, ठीक है, बट हाँ ब्रीफ में लिखना, बट यू कैन मेक द रेफरेंस. मैत्री की राह बताने को, सबको सुमार्ग पर लाने को, दुर्योधन को समझाने को, भीषण विध्वंस बचाने को, भगवान हस्तिनापुर आए, पांडव का संदेशा लाए, दो न्याय अगर तो आधा दो, यदि इसमें कोई बाधा हो तो दे दो केवल 5 ग्राम, रखो अपनी धरती तमाम, हम वही खुशी से खाएंगे, परिजन पर असीना उठाएंगे. दुर्योधन वह भी दे न सका, आशीष समाज की ले न सका, उल्टा हरि को बांधने चला, जो था असाध्य उसे साधने चला. जब नाश मनुष्य पर छाता है पहले विवेक मर जाता है. हरि ने भीषण हुंकार किया, अपना स्वरूप विस्तार किया, डगमग डगमग दिग्गज डोले, भगवान कुपित होकर बोले, जंजीर बढ़ाकर साध मुझे, हाँ हाँ दुर्योधन बांध मुझे. So it's a very, very effective line which says that विनाश काल विपरीत बुद्धि. जब नाश मनुष्य पर छाता है तो पहले विवेक मर जाता है. The ability to differentiate between right and wrong gets crippled. So yes, you can make reference to Rashmi Rati as well. Is that very clear? तो चाहते तो कुरुक्षेत्र रुक सकता था. भगवान कृष्ण तो ये लेकर भी गए थे संदेश दुर्योधन को समझाने के लिए, लेकिन दुर्योधन नहीं समझे. Is that very clear? So you can make all these references. Is that clear for everyone? Is this very clear for everyone? Can we proceed? ठीक है, कहां थे हम? यहां तक लिख लिया है आपने? अब लिखो, अब लिखो, इसके आगे लिखो. Write down. The concept of sthit prajna mentioned under Bhagavad Gita also defines what qualities are there in an emotionally stable person. What qualities are there in an emotionally stable person? For example, according to Lord Krishna, one who remains unperturbed in the face of calamity, one who remains unperturbed in the face of calamity, comma, takes good or evil with equanimity, comma, he's neither too happy when something good happens, he's neither too happy when something good happens, or neither very affected when something wrong happens. Neither very affected, matlab negatively affected, when things go against him. When things go against him. However, this doesn't mean that he lacks sensitivity. However, this doesn't mean he lacks sensitivity. However, this doesn't mean he lacks sensitivity. In fact, it depicts his ability to keep his emotions in check. It depicts his ability to keep his emotions in check and the skill of withdrawing his feelings and the skill of withdrawing his feelings away from the object of pleasure or pain. Away from the object of pleasure or pain. Away from the object of pleasure or pain. Full stop. Last. Lord Krishna also showed the path to achieve emotional stability. Lord Krishna also showed the path to achieve emotional stability, and that is the path of Nishkam Karma. That is the path of Nishkam Karma. That is the path of Nishkam Karma. Is that very clear? None of the other theories have ever said, अभी तक जो भी हम पढ़ रहे थे, nobody ever mentioned that how to develop this state of emotional stability. But in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has also provided the means, the path to achieve this status of emotional stability, and that is Nishkam Karma. ठीक है, कर्म कर, फल की इच्छा मत कर. Remain detached with the consequences of your action. Perform the actions if you believe those actions are right, without bothering about whether they will give you the desired fruits or not. So, Nishkam Kar. Apni duty karo being a public administrator. Do not worry or do not think that will I get promotion or not, what will I be recognized or not. Nahi. Fal kar, काम कर्म कर, फल की इच्छा मत रख. ठीक है, so that is Nishkam Kar. Is this very clear for everyone? Can we proceed? So that is emotional intelligence in Indian context. So with this emotional intelligence as a topic comes to an end. एक बस question देखेंगे last. इस बार का question है ये. Read the question quickly. Nishkam Karma. Nishkama, Nishkam Karma, Karma. Oh, I am so sorry. I think there must be South Indian students who would not have understood Rashmi Rati and all that stuff. I am so sorry, people. I didn't realize. But actually, उसमें दे रखा था. So the example was very apt. So I am really sorry. I think that would have been a problem. Okay, so you can write any example where it shows that because of desire and anger, it is responsible for your downfall because you become delusional. Right? Let's look at this example. In case of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence helps to overcome the same without compromising the ethical or moral standard that you are likely to follow? Critically examine. I think crisis of conscience you must have studied in your ethics classes by Jatin sir. तो क्राइसिस ऑफ कॉन्शियंस की डेफिनेशन मैंने लिख दी है आपके लिए, बट दिस इज व्हाट इट इज. कॉन्शियंस मीन्स एन इनर वॉइस विच हेल्प्स यू डिसाइड व्हाट इज राइट, व्हाट इज एथिकल, व्हाट इज मॉरल. क्राइसिस ऑफ कॉन्शियंस मतलब जब ये क्राइसिस आ जाए, मतलब देयर इज अ डायलेमा between the two choices and you are compelled to choose the action which is going against your voice of conscience, because conscience is the inner voice which tells me what is right, what is ethical, what is moral. So when I am in a situation of dilemma between two choices and I am forced to take an action which goes against my voice of conscience, that is known as crisis of conscience. Is that clear? Is this clear? When someone is worrying because they think that they have done something unfair or morally wrong, so that is crisis of conscience. It's a state when you are going through that feeling of guilt, remorse, unrest. That is crisis of conscience. नहीं, you don't have to write this. ये तो मैं upload करा दूंगी. ये तो इस साल का question ही है. UPSC पूछ चुकी है. My concern is not that. My concern is just see the screen. You know what is emotional intelligence. You know what is crisis of conscience. Can you write the answer? Introduction. Rimjim, it's introduction. Just tell me, if you know what is crisis of conscience and if you know what is emotional intelligence, can you write the answer? It is crisis of conscience. It is not code of conduct. Yes, you will be able to write. See, I will get this upload. Example, state of Arjun before Kurukshetra. He was in the state of crisis of conscience. He was feeling that guilt of waging a war against his own family members. Right? So what is crisis of conscience? I have given you so many definitions. You can choose one. You don't have to write everything. You don't have to define what is conscience. You can in fact start your answer with the example, state of Arjun before Kurukshetra. That is a situation of crisis of conscience. And in fact, the teachings of Lord Krishna helped him overcome this situation of crisis of conscience and become an emotionally stable person. Is this very clear? So what is emotional intelligence? In case of crisis of conscience, this is the linking statement, which is an undesirable psychological state of mind. EI can help us overcoming it. And then you can talk about how EI, emotionally intelligent person, is not a prisoner of his own feelings. So he has the ability to control impulses. So if the situation of crisis arises, whether to serve personal interest or public interest, the person will serve the public interest. Why? Because he is an emotionally intelligent person. If you are an emotionally intelligent person, matlab you have social skills. You have the ability of persuasion, resolving conflict. Is that very clear? So you will be able to overcome the situation of crisis. Similarly, if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you will have courage, you will have inner strength to act with integrity and withstand adverse situation. So if the crisis of conscience arises, why? Because you are being given the orders by the senior of lathi charge, tear gas, pellet guns on a protesting public. And if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you will be able to, move through this crisis situation. Similarly, if there is a crisis of conscience, because there is a situation of disaster and you have to decide in a limited time, that how you are supposed to act. And if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you will be able to reconcile the divergent values and arrive at a solution. Similarly, if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you will be rational. So then you can give the example that suppose you have been given a charge to clear the forest for construction of metro, a crisis of conscience has arises that whether the forest needs to be preserved or the metro needs to be constructed. Short-term interest needs to be pursued or long-term concerns needs to be taken care of. And if you are an emotionally intelligent person, you will be able to take the rational stock of situation and accordingly act. I have given too many examples. आप कोई भी 3-4 लिख सकते थे. Emotionally intelligent people are self-aware. So they know about their values and principles. They will not be getting swayed away by materialistic goals. If you are emotionally intelligent, you have self-control. You have control over your anger. You have control over your desire. If you are emotionally intelligent, you are empathetic. You will not cause any pain and suffering to others. You can overcome the situation of crisis of conscience. Right? So I have given you so many examples. हर example नहीं लिखना है. The one which strikes you in the exam can be written. Shantanu, there are two things to it. Shantanu, there are two things to it. Critically analyze also means in-depth analysis, right? So that's one part of it. The second part, so in every question, you don't have to be critical, as in you don't have to give the counter argument. Sometimes critically analyze means in-depth analysis. That's one thing. Second thing, I'll agree to this point that you might take it in other perspective also, that not always emotional intelligence helps you to overcome the crisis of conscience. And what are those cases where it will not help you? These are the cases. However, every time emotional intelligence is not sufficient in resolving crisis of conscience. For example, if you, in the process of following the professional ethics, right, or in the areas where there is absence of law, ambiguity of laws, or with respect to surveillance versus privacy debate, or with respect to scarcity of goods, or with respect to where your loved ones are involved. तो जब loved ones involved होते हैं ना, तो emotional intelligence काम नहीं आता है. तो तब emotional intelligence भी crisis of conscience को overcome नहीं कर पाता. Is this very clear? ठीक है. So yes, you can give the other side of the story also. So it depends whether you want to do in-depth analysis or you want to do critical analysis in the traditional manner, giving both the side of the story. So that's totally your call. Is this very clear for everyone? Is it making sense for everyone? Can I proceed? नहीं, proceed क्या, अब तो हो गया. Emotional intelligence as a topic comes to an end. This I will ask the team to upload. In fact, ये है भी Telegram channel पे, तो वहां पे जाके आप देख सकते हो. So with this, emotional intelligence comes to an end. ठीक है? I have given you sufficient questions, the kind of questions which UPSC has asked. That also we have talked about. What is emotional intelligence? What are the building blocks of emotional intelligence? Can emotional intelligence be learned? Can emotional intelligence overcome crisis of conscience? What is role of emotional intelligence in administration and governance? ठीक है? Is this very clear for everyone? See? So on this note, we will conclude today's lecture. With this, emotional intelligence as a topic comes to an end. I have just one lecture left in your batch as far as ethics is concerned. And there I have to discuss with you क्या कहते हैं, the last topic of ethics and human interface, जिसमें determinants of ethics, dimension of ethics, essence of ethics, consequences of ethics. बस ये बात करनी है हमें. These small 4 topics are left. Is that very clear? एक class में हो जाएगा. Is this very clear? So on this note, I conclude the lecture and happy Holi people once again. So enjoy, have fun. ठीक, चलो, bye.